Welcome to the Twigg and Jenkins podcast. I was realizing we were doing the countdown to the election day.
Oh,
I wonder if now we should be like, well, how many days since the election has it been? Because I feel like it's like like BC AD. Like, how many days? It's been like, what, 15 days?
I mean, why you would ever ask me to do math on camera is I thought you loved me, A.
It's been like 2 weeks.
Yeah, ish, give or take.
It feels a lot longer.
It does feel a lot longer.
It feels a lot longer than 2 weeks.
And the conversation hasn't really moved forward all that much. It's been like a couple weeks of just really.
It's been processing. I feel like we're all processing. And then meanwhile, Trump is just
going in. This dude.
He's like vetting? What's vetting? I'm just going to name individuals.
Do they look good in a red tie.
Have they been on Fox News?
I mean,
let's go. Let's name absolute idiots to my cabinet. Let's go.
Yeah.
That is his vibe.
Yeah.
But how are you feeling, Twig? You're back in DC for a
hot minute.
Bit. Are those snow boots?
Well, because it's snowing here. Dude.
It is lightly. Was it snowing?
There was salt on the ground. I got off the train. So I was in New York, and it was been raining in New York, and it was cold, and I'm a delicate, precious flower that apparently can't take the cold anymore.
You grew up in Ohio.
I know. There was a time when I was very hale and hearty, but apparently 3 years in California, and it's all gone. It's like I love winter sports, snowboarding, that kind of thing, but like winter in cities, not into it. So I was prepared for just like walking around, because I walk miles and miles and miles whenever I'm in New York, because I love it. But so I was prepared for rain, and thankfully they came in handy here because it's snowing.
Weird kind of a snow. It's like a wet
sleety.
DC, doesn't really snow in DC. It's like this.
When I lived here, it did. Remember like the Snowmageddon era,
right? But that's like
We've
normal
heated up
day
a little bit
in
since
Buffalo.
Then. Yeah, that's true. And in Ohio, I mean, we used to have very snowy winters, but I don't know. Sean Boyle, producer of Twigg and Jenkins, said something about La Nina.
Mm-hmm.
So,
is that what this is?
I don't remember what he said specifically.
Who knows? Who knows what Sean Boyle says?
More riveting content.
It's true. We have so much to discuss.
Oh.
We don't really have an outline per se.
Go figure.
But
some hot rants ready to go.
We have some hot. Well, Twig and I were texting, and I very stupidly watched a piece of content this morning.
Yeah, and I still have not watched it because I want you to have to tell me what happened.
Well, here's the thing. There are people in my life who, and these are not family members, but just people who are, Democratic leaders, respected people in Democratic circles, friends who go on this show.
Okay.
It's been around forever. It's called Real Time with Bill Maher.
And what do you think about Real Time with
It's
Bill
the
Maher?
worst show. It's the worst show on television. It's not even close. It's worse than Fox News.
Yeah.
It's actually worse than Fox News, because at least with Fox News, you know what you're getting. It's propaganda, it's misinformation, it's bullshit, and you're signing up for it.
Yeah.
Real Time with Bill Maher is Fox News talking points aimed at our Democratic establishment.
Totally.
And our Democratic establishment eats it up. They fucking eat it up. And they think Bill Maher is intelligent. They think that he has cogent arguments for what ails the Democratic Party. And so I made the mistake of watching this bullshit this morning where Bill Maher blames, get this, he blamed Kamala Harris losing because she was too far left. Yeah, too far left. She was captured by the woke elites.
Okay.
Wearing Queers for Palestine shirts. Direct quote from our guy Bill Maher.
What?
Yeah.
Like during her campaign, she was wearing.
No, this was just like, you know, he has a send up and he has writers. Apparently, he has writers, and they have things that they put on the screen. And he's making this long argument that the reason why Democrats lost to Donald Trump is that we're too woke. And I mean, there's a lot that I can sort of, in fact, I think we should maybe set that aside and like really dig into it in like a separate pod. But I do worry, and this is sort of a larger conversation around what is the Democratic Party's media diet? Because...
Or more importantly, like, what's the leadership of the Democratic Party's media diet?
Yeah.
Right? Because we're already starting to see that, or at least I'm starting to see in the things that I consume, the schism between like the Democrats need to get back to like faith and economics and centrist views. Most Americans are moderates. Most Americans don't care about social issues. They care about, you know, family and fortune, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then others who are like, if we've spent the last 25, 30 years carving out positions, moving us towards a more progressive, inclusive, respectful place where all Americans get to participate,
yes,
and we turn our back on that, then like, what are we even doing here? What's been the point?
Yes.
And there's got to be a way to do both.
It's a perfect way to put it. And not to only place blame at Bill Maher. I think this is a larger challenge and the fault of last episode we talked a lot about the Democratic Party, and I was pushing back a little bit because I was like, I think it's bigger than the Democratic Party, and I couldn't put my finger on like what it was that was larger than the Democratic Party. I actually think it's legacy media, and I think it's cable news, and I think it's shows like Bill Maher
that do what?
That do a couple of things.
Okay.
One, we as Democrats are afraid to have very tough conversations. We brought this up during the Democratic National Convention, where Republicans will put forward an idea that is factually inaccurate, which is to say, let's just use the border as an example. If you were to watch Fox News and watch Bill Maher, apparently, thank you, Bill Maher, for agreeing with Republicans, that the reason why Donald Trump won was because all Americans, blacks and Latinos and whites and everyone, agree with this notion that our border is insecure and that there are millions of illegal immigrants come across our border and killing people left and right. What do we do? What does our legacy media do? What do Democrats do? We just don't bring it up. We just don't bring it up. We didn't bring it up during the convention. What are the facts? Like the actual facts. The actual facts, I looked it up. This year, there have been about 26,000 homicides this year. Guess how many of those homicides, illegal immigrants, undocumented people, committed of those 26,000 homicides?
I have no idea.
29.
Okay.
29 of 26,000 homicides.
Yeah.
And yet, we don't even push back. We just pretend as if this is something that is real. And so that's number one. And number two, as it relates to, you know, Bill Maher and these shows propagating right-wing talking points, what they are doing right now is seeding the ground and opening up an opportunity for Donald Trump to enact the most fascist, racist, dehumanizing, violent actions that a federal government has ever done. So when Bill Maher and other people are saying, oh no, the American people were worried about all of these illegal immigrants murdering people, parroting that talking point, and then millions of people who are going to be separated from their families, millions of people who, the architect of family separation, were going to be thrown into literal cages because we as Democrats are afraid to have the conversation. And I think Jose put it perfectly when we had him in Chicago. It's the lack of a spine, the lack of imagination, and the lack of determination. The last thing I'll say about Bill Maher, and then we'll get off the Bill Maher rant because this podcast is going great, just like fired up over here, is he ended on Seth Moulton. he ended on this idea, and he mentioned, Kamala Harris ingratiating herself with the transgender community. All of these ads, these bullshit ads that were spent by Elon Musk and all these motherfuckers to divide the country and to put a target on the back of trans kids.
Yeah.
Fundamentally. Do you know how many trans humans there are in the United States? This is a playbook that is, just go back through the annals of time. Who are the most vulnerable humans in the country? That is who we're going to go after. So Bill Maher chalks that up to Kamala Harris losing, which is completely false. Tom Bonnier just went through the data. 12% of voters mentioned this as even an issue that was important to them. Kamala Harris did not lose because of her embracing or not embracing of transgender humans. It's just not true. Seth Moulton parrots congressman from Massachusetts who apparently wants to go on Bill Maher. Bill should have, I guarantee you, Seth will be on Bill Maher next week because Bill brought up that Congressman Moulton parrots a Republican talking point where he says, I'm like every other dad out there, and I'm worried about my daughter playing sports and a boy coming in and hurting her. This is a Democratic member of Congress who has the world of information at his fingertips. He can do research. He can Google. He can just do it. And I did it. I Googled how many transgender high school athletes there are that play varsity sports. Think about how many millions of kids play high school sports. Guess how many there are? Total.
How many?
40. 40.
Yeah.
There are 40 transgender athletes that play at the varsity level. And Seth Moulton is worried. He's worried. He's shaking in his boots about, again, a right-wing talking point that Trump and all of these right-wing platformed provocateurs and charlatans that go on Bill Maher, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, Jordan Peterson. Bill made all these guys famous and then simultaneously parrots these talking points to seed the ground for Donald Trump winning. So, you know what, Bill? Go fuck yourself. I'm just going to say it. That is not the reason why Kamala Harris lost. The world of information is at your fingertips. Read about why Kamala Harris lost. It's none of those things. And for our Democratic leaders that keep going on this bullshit show and who believe that that's the reason why we lost, that we should be afraid of Sarah McBride, Congresswoman McBride, going into the bathroom and not defending her. The only person who's out there defending her, AOC. Where the hell is everyone else? It's pathetic. And I'm sorry, I'm angry. I know, the only good person out there, I would say, is The Daily Show. Jon Stewart's fucking angry.
Yeah,
I think people are angry at Democrats because now is the time where we define who we are. Now is not the time to just become Republicans. Now is not the time to just become Republicans. And so with that, I got that out of my system. Also, by the way, guys.
Hey, buddy.
By the way, guys, I have stopped drinking. I don't know if you could tell. It may have. This is what happens when I don't drink. I get really fired up, and I drink a lot of coffee, and so you would think that your blood pressure would go down, but
that was the moderating force. Interesting.
This is Brad, sober Brad. This is Brad, really, really upset, and I think that when he platformed Milo, speaking of the seeding of hate, the seeding of how does mainstream hate take hold, right? Starts with stuff like that. It starts with putting someone like Milo on a program where, PragerU and the Koch brothers and all of these right-wing funders start to see people like Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson. So when we ask the question, where did this right-wing ecosystem come from? It comes from people like Bill Maher. I'm sorry. I know I'm just going on a whole huge rant about Bill Maher, but
Can I ask you a question about
that? Let's go for it.
Do you, I've never really paid that much attention to Bill Maher, and so, as I do, as we know about me.
You don't really watch political media.
No.
Much at all.
No.
God bless you.
And because so many people just have no idea what they're talking about. It's just like, if you have you run a campaign, like I watch these things and I'm just like the speculation and the people. Anyway, so I've seen certain episodes, or I've seen a handful of episodes of Bill Maher over the course of the 20 years that it's been on television. Has there been a rightward tack to him over the course of the time? And do you think it's connected to his feelings being hurt? So you have Cornel West, who felt snubbed by Barack Obama and then decided that he hated Barack Obama and was going to run against him constantly. We have Elon Musk, who did not get invited to the White House summit on EVs, and so then decided that he hated Joe Biden.
Oh, is that true?
That's true. And came out against, like, really, like, catalyzed his whole, like, screw Democrats, because he voted for, Elon supported Obama, and then really, like, goes hard into, I'm going to work with Donald Trump and do all of that. Barack Obama making fun of Donald Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
The greatest mistake of all time.
Potentially the greatest mistake in modern political history. And then now, like, Bill Maher seems like a dude to me with a very fragile ego.
Oh God, yes.
And so I can imagine, like, is this another consequence of a White House Obama-Biden snubbing?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's white male fragility, to be honest. I think you're right, where the Obama era left him behind. He was no longer interesting or cool, right? Very good point. What Bill Maher reminds me of is, like, when you go to like a cocktail party, or you go to like a house party, and you're like meeting people for the first time, and they're like drinks at a bar, and you're just having very surface level conversations, and everyone sort of has a few talking points, and that's pretty much it. Like, that is all of our media. That's cable news. I've been on cable news. That's the way that cable news is oriented, right? It's like, there's breaking news. We're going to have 4 people who generally have different perspectives because of their race or their identity, but they all probably went to like 5 colleges.
Right.
And we're all going to, like, just at the surface level talk about Matt Gaetz dropping out.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, that is, when in reality, it's like, what's happening right now is we're in the dark timeline. Like, we're in the place right now that could not be more dangerous. This is the thing that we kept saying might happen. It's happening.
Yeah.
And we're still having cocktail conversations.
Yeah.
About the thing, where no one really has enough information or data or expertise to go even like one step lower, because all of the people on there are political strategists who read talking points. And so then when border security comes up, or when trans kids playing sports comes up, people just have the talking point. People are like, well, you have to understand why people are fearful of it. It's like, no. People shouldn't be fearful of it. Let's actually, like, the only person who does this effectively, honestly, is someone like Pete Buttigieg. Pete will actually be like, no, when he goes on Fox News. No. Let's go back a step. What you just said there is actually incorrect. So I'm not going to even engage with the contours of the question as it's posed to me. And what I worry about right now is this is not a time for Democrats to become like Republicans.
Yeah.
This is a very dangerous moment for Democrats to become like Republicans. You and I have been talking a lot about how Democrats need to get out of our fucking way when it comes to reaching people that don't feel like Democrats have a plan for them, for ladders of opportunity for like them to get a fucking job or for them to have a career. That was not brought up one time in Bill Maher's rant. And yet every single exit
That's not
poll,
his shtick.
every
Like,
single
he's
data
serious,
point.
But he's not a serious like actual person. Like he's
not
an
a
entertainer.
I know.
You know, and I think that actually is so much of the problem. It's like there's this great new, I think I sent it to you, a big Pew Research. Pew Center did a big research study, and it's like 63% of Americans get their news from entertainment sources.
Mm-hmm.
So from social media, from entertainers, and
Yes.
not actually from journalists. And
Yes.
Bill Maher is not a journalist.
Yes.
Like he's not a researcher. He's not an expert other than in being on television, which is an expertise in its own right, in a performance capacity.
Sure.
But it's not like an academic expertise or a policy expertise. And like we're going into this moment where unless Democrats can figure out a bunch of different things simultaneously and in a really short period of time, we're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
We need to figure out how to recapture people's attention.
Yep.
When like TikTok's never been better, YouTube's never been better, film and TV has never been better. And it's like, how are you going to actually get people to pay attention to what you're saying?
Yeah.
How are we going to figure out how to say the things that we need to say in a way that actually works for as many people as possible? I think that one of the things that you said, I think that there is a degree of spinelessness to Democrats for sure. I also think that one of our problems is we have not truly figured out, and occasionally individuals do, like a Barack Obama, but it doesn't translate over to the party, which is people are Democrats for different reasons.
True.
And so when you are trying to talk to a large Democratic audience and they are Democrats for 50 different reasons, what do you say?
Yeah.
Right. And that's really that we get so dial tested and focus group that we end up saying nothing because we're trying to talk to people with disparate points of view, as opposed to figuring out how to build some values that a bunch of different issues can fit within. And Republicans have an easier row to hoe in that people are animated to be a Republican for just a narrower set of reasons and a narrower set of values. And so Democrats have to figure out how to deliver a message in a way that actually captures attention. We have to figure out how to deliver messaging that that actually uses the fact that we're a big tent and then it has so many different types of Democrats in it as a leverage point for power building, as opposed to like this thing that makes us mealy mouthed and seem chicken all the time. And we have to like bring in a new generation of political talent, both to run as candidates, but also to like run the shit. And we're not, and I don't know how that's all,
I think we have to be
unfold.
unafraid to have the hard conversations. And I think that, we talked about it with Kamala, and I think we agreed that she made the right call with regards to race, because you don't want them to define this. Remember, we were like,
and she doesn't need to.
Is she
look
black?
at her and
Is she Indian? Is she all these things? And like, we're like, that's irrelevant. Her race is not relevant to American people's livelihoods or, what they wake up to every single day. Right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. We play on the right wing's talking points. They set the parameters of the debate. They set, in my humble opinion, the parameters of this whole election. When they have Fox News, you bring up a very good point, which is Republicans will just focus on the one or two things. And in this case, it was immigration. And it was stuff is too expensive. Inflation. Things are too expensive. And then I think you'd also have the wedge, woke, transgender. How do we show how Democrats are out of touch with the American people?
Yeah.
I don't think that we had a really good argument for any of those.
Agreed.
Those
100%.
three things. Those three things. And what we did was we ignored those three things. And when you ignore things, this is what happens. When you ignore things and there isn't a really good counterweight to it, then it just becomes absorbed as fact.
Yeah.
And I think for people, there's all the charts and graphs showed that those that, to your point, those that aren't watching political news, they are overwhelmingly voting for Trump. Overwhelmingly. Because they're seeing entertainment news. They're seeing podcasts. They're seeing cultural things, right? And when those issues come up for why someone isn't going to vote for Kamala Harris, there isn't a vocabulary. There isn't a lexicon on beating back those bullshit ideas. This idea of all of these migrants coming over and killing people. That's just not true.
Yeah.
This idea that there are all these kids out there, men taking over women's sports. It's just not true.
Yeah.
And as it relates to the inflation issue, I mean, look, we can go back and, to your point, all of the work that Joe Biden did.
Yeah.
All of the work, the infrastructure bill, the Inflation Reduction Act. And so going forward, we can't, it's like anything else, right? It's like we got our asses kicked because we ignored these three things. Like if you're a football coach, you're like, this is the reason why we lost the game, right? It's like our offensive line wasn't blocking, our secondary was not coming across, like all of these things. You still have to fix those things.
Yes.
And right now, what I'm worried about is how are we going to communicate around these mass deportations?
Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't really
seen. I have no
seen,
idea. No one has shown much leadership on this issue.
I haven't
so far.
seen. The president's still the president.
Yeah.
The vice president's still the vice president.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie Harrison is still the chair of the DNC.
Mm-hmm.
At least I guess he's leaving soon.
I assume he will. Has that been announced?
It's announced he's stepping down.
Yeah. Well, as is normal.
As is normal.
I mean, there's a couple different things. One of the things I think that is already being set up in this next sort of leadership battle over the party, because it's not clear who the de facto leader is. It's usually the president, if there's a sitting one, or if there's not, it's the last person to be president, right? So, but we have a lot of people bubbling around, right? Is it the Harris people? Is it the Biden people? Is it the Obama people? Like, who is going to be the power center in this next wave?
Who do you think it should be? I don't think it should be any of those people. And I'm speaking as someone who's an Obama person. I don't know.
I don't necessarily think so either. I could be convinced of certain people from certain places.
Yeah.
But I would love to see a departure from sort of the existing infrastructure. But I think the most logical thing is that, like, someone will, because you have to raise all this money.
Yeah.
Right? So you need one of those major camps on board who's proven that they can raise $1 billion, and they will be the people who fund the party. And so you kind of have to draft off of, like, who is going to be in charge.
Why do we think, can I just push back on that?
Sure.
Because we are in the dark timeline and end times. I mean, Trump is assembling, we haven't even talked about his cabinet yet. Trump is assembling, like, this is when you do research on, like, how do fascist dictatorships, how are they created? This is what he's doing. He's taking control of the defense. He's taking control of national intelligence, and he's taking control of the Department of Justice. We tried to, but he's going to put someone else in there. These should be independent from the president of the United States. He is going to assume control over all of those things. He's putting people in these departments and agencies.
They're not, I mean, he's not independent. They're not independent of him. I mean, the Department of Defense.
They should be. The Department of Justice should be.
Every president is the commander in chief.
Very good point. But the biggest challenge and battle that Donald Trump had, that's been documented, has been his battles with generals.
Yeah.
Generals that did not agree with his courses of action.
I'm just saying the way you're setting it up made it sound like he was breaking with precedent. Every president picks their own attorney general. Every president,
yes,
the leader of the
Department
of
they
Justice.
pick qualified people to do it.
That's a different thing.
That's my point. No.
Yeah,
of course. No. I'm not. Of course, every president picks the people.
Yeah.
But the people are qualified,
right?
Eminently qualified.
Yeah.
To run these parts of the government, and their primary purpose is to serve the American people and that department or agency. That's their primary purpose.
Yeah.
The people that he's putting into power, their primary purpose is to serve Donald Trump.
Yes.
It is not to serve the department and agencies. In fact, he's putting people in these department and agencies whose primary purpose is to dismantle said departments and agencies.
100%. As he promised on his campaign.
As he promised he would.
But how does that relate to funding the DNC?
Because we're in the dark, because we're in the end times.
Okay.
and because we had more money than God.
Sure.
We had more, the DNC and the campaign had more money than God. Because money, the way that traditional powers work is that very rich people, the people that you and I know, these DNC bundlers, they get wined and dined, and they're part of the Democratic National Committee, the finance team, and they come to Chicago and they go to the fancy hotels and they're given all of this access and proximity to the campaign staff, because that's great. And then they give them, or they commit to raise millions and millions of dollars. They're not doing it for free.
No.
The reason why they're doing it is because they're hoping to get something out of it. That there is some transaction that is going to occur by me being some Silicon Valley billionaire, or by me being some oil magnate, or by me being something hotelier. You're going to give me access. I'm going to go raise you a bunch of money. I'm going to give you all this money. And in order for me to give you all this money, I'm going to expect something out of it. So when we talk about the corporatism, we talk about how Democrats have been captured by this elite corporatism. That is where it comes from. It comes from, it's like we're rotten to the core. If it's all about money, Donald Trump had the greatest fucking, speaking of,
like time out. Hold on. I don't disagree with any of that. And the reality is, to run a 50-state strategy so that people can win elections, you need money. Like that is not what the Democratic Party brand is so high. We're going to be able to raise it from small donors.
I think money is important, but I think that what we stand for is way more important. I think that the money comes secondary. I think the money will come when people believe in what we believe in. And I think a lot of times it's flipped, where the criteria for someone running the Democratic Party is, do they have access to people who have a lot of wealth?
But here's the thing. That doesn't change the fundamental reality that the DNC is going to be coalesced and organized under a power structure from someone. And that person, that historically, that the way that this industry operates, this town operates, and you know this, is that it's going to take on the personality and the culture of whoever is actually running the show. Might not be who the chair is, but it will be who is sort of taking responsibility from the seven people at the very, very top of the party who are ex-presidents, ex-vice presidents, ex-candidates for president. That's just...
I completely agree with you, but I think, again, if we're in these end times, I would love for a DNC chair to run and say, we're going to get rid of these fucking donors.
Yeah,
think about it.
I don't disagree with you. I would love it.
Walk me through it. Well, I'm going to walk you through it, because that is what Bernie Sanders did. Bernie Sanders ran against Hillary Clinton, and he said, we forget all this shit because it feels like ages ago. I'm not doing any fundraisers.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do a single fucking big dollar fundraiser. He outraised Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
$5 here, $10 here, $2 here, $20 here. Not to mention the fact, Kamala Harris, probably her campaign, if you were to compare the campaign apparatuses between what Donald Trump's campaign apparatus spent, what Kamala Harris's campaign apparatus spent, I think we probably spent almost double than what Donald Trump spent.
Yeah, I think we're close to that.
Donald Trump, because Donald Trump didn't need to spend all that money, because what is that money? When you're spending the money, that's all paid media.
Yeah. You got to let me finish a point, though.
No, I'm just saying, like...
But I haven't even gotten to finish the point that I'm trying to make around what I think the party needs to do.
Then go. Sorry, I'm hopped up. I haven't drank alcohol in 2 weeks. Let's go.
That's great.
Well, since we last recorded our podcast.
It's showing. We might need to bump this up to twice a week so that you can get all your words out. Okay, so one of the things that whoever becomes in charge of the Democratic Party that we actually need to figure out, because the dynamic is already being set up, as you already have said, right? Of like, sort of, most of the country is moderate and we need to move the party back towards moderation, versus no, we need to do on the ground organizing. AOC, I think, had an amazing tweet that you sent me that was like, we need an organizer. We need someone who actually understands how you build infrastructure so that you can get to a place where you are not beholden to these moneyed elites and to the people who can write $10 million checks at one time. Right. all of that is true. And that tension is already being set up. And one of the things that I haven't heard, and again, I obviously don't consume a ton of media around this, but I doubt is like that popular of an opinion, but that we're going to have to reconcile is if you want us to retreat from like the wokeness, what that actually means, right?
Yeah.
Like we have let Donald Trump, we have absorbed the attack that Democrats are overly reliant on identity politics, while not discussing the fact that Donald Trump's entire campaign is about identity.
100%.
It is 100% an exercise in identity politics as well. Like that is identity politics are the reality of American politics. It is not a uniquely Democratic feature.
He did a better job at identity politics
100%,
than we did.
100%.
That's literally why we lost.
And because his identity is the identity that he's catering to and organized around is white men who have been the default identity of America for so long. It's not as visible as when we center other people. So
great point.
What does that actually mean if we go away from like the wokeness, as Bill Maher and all these people, not just Bill Maher, but so many people in the Democratic Party are going to be advocating as as the battle royale for control of the party starts to unfold? It's like, it means not putting another woman up for president. Like that's what it actually means, right? It means abandoning or thinking that that's too risky. It means allowing, as you said,
such bullshit.
Allowing the most marginalized people in our society, hanging them out to dry after pretending and campaigning on and raising money from communities around them and around that issue for a decade, totally hanging them out to dry. It means not fighting for and absorbing the arguments around what will happen to the infrastructure of the government that the vast majority of people cannot explain and do not understand. Your tweet or Instagram story about the Department of Education and how it's the #1 funder of disability access and special needs education in the country. Like that is a marginalized community that is going to lose protection. Like anti-wokeness, you can call it something else. I don't care if we're going to lose a semantic battle. I'm not attached to a particular word, but the set of values that underpin all of that, if we actually abandon that and we're so flippant as to be like, we have to move away from wokeness, like let's talk about what that actually means. And that talk about who we actually hang out to dry in that context. And that needs to be at the heart of the Democratic Party. And to your point, it's about reestablishing the values that underpin everything we do and all of the elections that we need to have that are going to be coming rapidly, right? We have to start gearing up for the midterms. I get all of that. We can't just assume that people are going to swing our way because that's what's happened historically. Like this, there's so much to do. But if we abandon all of the things that we have spent a decade building and organizing around and fighting for in pursuit of some nebulous Republican light version of the Democratic Party, then because we've projected onto people that they can't hold both. Right? That they can't care about inflation and economics as well as just not wanting powerful people to beat up on not powerful people. Like that, reconciling those two factions and not falling into the trap of like thinking that they are inherently at odds is to me the most pressing kind of issue and work that we need to do over the course of the next several months.
I couldn't agree more. That was very well put. Much more articulate than what I've been blabbering for the past, I don't know how many minutes. Very well done. I completely agree. I think that, that's the thing that I'm most worried about. Which is
just not happening.
We are not going to win by just chalking all of this up to ignoring communities that we fundamentally, this is why we exist as a Democratic Party. Now, with all that said, we talked about this on the last pod. Now, we're not going to fight for for representation's sake. Like, oh, we're checking a box like, oh, yeah,
right,
you're this. Okay. No, it needs to be something a lot more
substantive. Have depth. Yeah.
And I do think, look, this happened when Trump won the last time, right? Like, this is not going to be an abstract thought exercise of what's going to happen when Donald Trump becomes president.
Yeah.
This is going to become very real very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Stephen Miller, fuck that guy.
Yeah, for sure.
Although I have to be worried now. Maybe I shouldn't say that because maybe I will be shipped out with my mom, back to Korea. Who knows? Who knows?
I'll come get you.
You can come get me. But he's promised on day one.
Yeah.
Mass deportations. He's promised the military being involved. They're already securing and identifying detention centers, for-profit detention centers. One of the industry's stocks that shot up the day after Donald Trump was elected was the prison industrial complex, because there are millions of undocumented Americans, millions. Where are you going to put all of them before you get them on planes and separate families? Like, all of this is so ugly and so disgusting. So I think that sometimes it is easier as Democrats to become united when we are fighting against something.
Yeah.
And so right now we are in this no man's land moment, right? Where even you and I were discussing, like, well, when do we have Jose back, right?
Yeah.
And God bless Jose Antonio Vargas. I spoke to him a couple days ago. As you can imagine, Jose is undocumented. As you can imagine, this is for him, his family, his friends, his family, organization, Define American. This is not
abstract.
This is not theoretical. This is very real for millions of people. We just can't be captured. And this is my whole thing too with this trans spectacle that's happening in the House. It's not just, I have seen some people kind of chalk it up to, this is just like a sideshow and this isn't that important. This is important.
Yeah.
One of the primary functions of the U.S. Department of Education is protecting trans kids. That is a department that is going to be dismantled. The first thing they're going to do is dismantle protections for LGBTQ plus kids. And so we just can't let people, I know people I'm sure some people watching are probably very offended at my rant against Bill Maher and against folks who traffic in this idea that this racism or this hatred or this fear-mongering or this escapism is sexy, and that the communities in which it's being inflicted upon, they like it. I mean, that was another argument he was saying. It's like, see, Latinos voted for demonization right. against Puerto Ricans, right? We can't fall for this. And the last thing I'll say is, I think it's incumbent, and I think we all need to be responsible now in this new world of doing the education. Because again, there's a world of information at people's fingertips. And I think that when, especially even our podcast, like, we talk a lot about a lot of stuff, but Donald Trump is going to be doing a lot of shit every day, and it needs to be explained to the American people what's happening.
Yeah.
And the Democratic Party needs really good communicators.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's what I mean. I mean,
that's why I want Jasmine Crockett to be chair.
Yeah, like, we need people and raising money. I get it. I don't mean to push back against it. I just feel like that's always the first thing we always say as Democrats. It's like, well, can they raise money?
No, I know.
You know?
First of all, it's what everyone says. It's
yes.
not just a Democratic predilection. But
True.
Second of all, I take your point, and it's, as we've been talking, I've sort of come up with my fantasy scenario.
Let's go.
For the Democratic Party, because there are so many like living power centers that are at our disposal, and the reality is they're all good at different things.
Yeah.
Right. So in a dream world, whether or not they get along is a separate issue. But in a dream world, it's like Barack Obama becomes in charge of like reshaping the media landscape.
Yes.
Something he's already opted into with Higher Ground and everything he's doing. Fine. But can still.
Sorry, I made a face.
Yeah. Straight right down the barrel. Might have to cut that. But
keep it in. No,
yeah.
I love Barack Obama.
I know you do. I know. But of all the sort of possible power centers, right? It's the Clintons, it's Harris, it's Biden, and the Obamas.
I like this.
And
give
Sanders.
Give them
Sanders.
different things
Give them
to
different
do.
little fiefdoms.
Yeah.
Barack Obama's the most logical one to go get Hollywood together and get sort of the entertainment and the media landscape together. They still love him. He is around. They can do it on a yacht. It's going to be great.
Do we want Hollywood after what they did this past cycle?
Well, the reality is that there's still we have a massive, massive need for more podcasts, for more content creators, for more storytellers to get involved in politics in a particular way. And there needs to be built distribution platforms the way that the right has. The right has poured hundreds of millions of dollars.
Very good point.
Into crafting a stable of entertainment entities that allow them to distribute their talking points, and we need something similar. It's not as simple as like lightning in a bottle like Joe Rogan, and it takes time.
Lightning in a bottle like Twigg and Jenkins. Just hit a million streams.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, he can be in charge of that. Like, media and
I
culture.
like that.
You can have the Bernie
Sanders.
Sanders.
Not just Obama. Maybe it's like Obama and AOC, because I do worry about the generational. I think you need a little bit of both, you know?
But he's also not, I mean, I'm sure he lives a very full life. But it's like he's not in office, right? She also has to hold down quite a bit in the house,
get it.
Right?
Yeah.
So she's, I think, she's going to be capturing a lot of the pushback, a lot of the activist energy, a lot of the not letting them get away with shit in the house.
What about Obama and Pete? Pete needs a job.
Pete's definitely gonna. I mean, he needs to just be full time on cable hits.
All the
someone
time.
needs to just give him a salary to take cable hits and just to do that work. The full time.
All the time.
Full time, right?
All the time.
So Barack Obama, go have a bunch of closed doors meetings about getting the left to have more of an appetite for reshaping the media landscape.
I like that.
Pete Buttigieg, go give him the old razzle dazzle on every media outlet you can
Pete
possibly
should go
get on
Rogan. Pete should
Totally.
go on Theo Vaughn. I mean, I know he did the Jubilee thing, which was incredible, but I think that we also, to your point, we need to be building an ecosystem, or almost it's like a farm club, right? Where it's like the minor leagues. Like, we need to be building better and more. I just hate to say it. Yeah.
So much money, and it takes a long time, right? And so there's a difference between building a structure and then running that structure.
Yep.
And so there's quiet work that needs to be done, that's behind the scenes, that no one's going to be you're not doing it on camera, you're not doing it in public, but someone needs to be building these infrastructures and organizing and rallying people to a unified vision.
I like that.
Very few people are as good at that as Barack Obama or the other people who've run for president that have gotten tens of millions of people to support them and to raise $1 billion, right? Joe Biden, to the extent that he will have time and interest in his post-presidency, going and doing the white guy circuit.
100%.
You pal up with Timmy Walls. We'll get one of those, side motorcycle with a sidecar and just put you guys out to trot.
The guy at the convention with the mullet who's out there.
I love
that
him.
Dude was
John
great.
Russell. John Russell?
Russell, yeah. He was
such
great.
a crush on him.
Yeah.
And
did you hear that podcast? I don't know if he's single. Here we go.
Oh, God.
By the way, this has been the least fun pod, and I think it's because I've stopped drinking. It's because I'm so hopped up.
don't want to blame sobriety. I do.
I had to get it out of my system.
Yeah.
I had to get it out of my system. I'm good now.
I do think that it took us. It was an interesting warm up.
Because I didn't laugh once. I think I was just really.
No, the first 12 minutes, I think when we watch this down in a day or two,
whoa.
It's going to be like, okay. So maybe we just make that a standalone clip. Because what you said is right. I think what you said is really important and deserves being called out. And so, and part of this isn't funny at all.
It's not.
Right? I mean, you and I can giggle about some of this stuff, but it's not actually funny most of the time.
It's really scary stuff. And the problem, the biggest challenge with that, and this is the last time I'm going to talk about it, the reason why it really hit a nerve with me is because it was quasi-right. Do you know what I mean?
It's just right enough to work.
Right.
That's the thing.
That's the thing that's so
well.
scary to me. Is there were lines of his monologue that could have come right out of our podcast.
Yeah, I know.
But the motives of where he was going,
I know,
was we also use the term, J.D. Vance was like, he like cleans Trump or he like
dignity washing.
He was dignity washing.
Yeah.
What the Trump campaign just did.
Yeah.
Which was ran the most fear-mongering, ugly campaign in modern American history. If you just think about the number of those anti-trans ads, the reason why no one is up in arms about the anti-trans ads is because there's so few trans Americans in America.
Yeah.
So there isn't like a very loud constituency saying, could you imagine if those ads were run against a version of that ad run against other communities?
Doing. Their ability to splinter community is so shockingly like it's Machiavellian in the worst possible way. It's so insidious. It's so nefarious, right?
Yes.
So you have JD Vance out there being like, listen, we love gay dudes so long as you conform to normal gender standards.
Yes.
So long as you're like a normal gay guy, right? That is an attempt to split the LGBTQ community and to siphon off just enough and leave out to dry all the trans people or the people who are nonconformist in some way and pick up a couple of votes, right?
Yes.
It is, we do it with the Latino community and the immigrant community. It's like, we're not talking about you guys.
Yeah, Vance doing it in Ohio.
We're talking about people who broke the laws and make you look bad.
Yes.
They, undocumented people, make you look bad.
Right.
You're here, you're doing the thing you need to do. My wife, my wife's parents, whatever, Melania, Elon, right? Even though he was here undocumented at some point. And they are dividing people who have had historically common, if tenuous, but common purpose.
Yes.
And over, just splitting just enough of the Democratic coalition apart and siphoning off. You take 10, 20% off the top of any of our like major organizing groups and we're screwed.
Yes. Yes.
And like watching them do that has been horrific. We are incredibly susceptible to that as human beings, not just Democrats. And it is one of the failures of it, and it's made possible because of our inability to speak in ways that feel tailored and specific.
Agreed.
And to your point, courageous.
And also the other thing that people keep washing over, I was listening to this pod and they're doing a breakdown. Patrick Ruffini wrote this book about how Republicans were going to be this multicultural phenomenon. And it's like, whatever, I don't know. He was giving himself way too much credit for like calling how Donald Trump was going to build this multiracial coalition of people. And the way that they were going about it and talking about the Black community or talking about the Asian community or Latino community was just wrong.
Yeah.
Because the vast majority of the folks that were going towards Trump, which by the way, in large respects was minimal, right, were men, not women.
Yeah.
Black women didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So when we're talking about, you and I talked about gender being such the key component to this race from the very beginning.
Yeah.
I think it's one of our first podcasts. We talked about this is the strategy.
Yeah.
We're going to run up the score with men.
Yeah.
And they did it.
Yeah.
And when we said they're going to run up the score with men, we didn't say just white men, which clearly he did. He did a very good job with men across the board.
Yeah.
And so that's the other part too. Like we can't keep lumping. I mean, this is the reason why race is so dumb. It's like, talk about the Asian American community and it's freaking like 50 different cultures and languages.
Exactly.
It's like, you can't lump all these people in, but you certainly can't lump gender in either.
Yeah.
And, while yes, Trump did very well with men across the board, Kamala did very well. God bless Black women.
Yeah.
Did very well. Asian women did very, so. And we can't leave those communities behind, to your point, which is especially those that are most vulnerable with this idea of let's just become more Republican-esque,
Yeah.
That is not the solution to this at all. At all.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so.
Sorry. So wait. So Obama is going to do media.
Draft fantasy team.
Yes, do draft fantasy. Obama's your first pick for media.
Draft team. Which direction does it
I
go?
like this. I like this idea of doing like a fantasy team because what you're doing is you're building different positions, right?
Yeah.
It's not just one chair. It's like
No.
The quarterback. I feel like the quarterback is an apt title for like the media because I think that is what is very important right now.
Right.
And
I would love to see like the Obama era folks get more engaged in that.
Well, you have the crooked infrastructure, right?
This
There's
is what I'm
great.
saying.
There's great models of success that already exist.
Exactly. This is why I'm saying it, right?
Yeah.
Like we're of that. There,
Totally.
It's the generation that makes the most sense for
like, Obama.
For the work that needs to be done.
100%.
Right. It's something we've already started anyway.
I really like this. Okay, so and then you drafted Joe Biden.
Joe Biden to like fix our problems with unions.
I feel like that's kind of like
I don't know
our running back. That's like our running back.
Okay, cool.
Because a running back is, it's especially in this day and age with the NFL, it's like sometimes overlooked as a key component, but you can't win a game without a strong run game. You need a strong running back. And maybe you're only going to get 2 or 3 yards down the field, but like if you don't have a run game, then you're not going to be able to establish a good passing offense. You have to have, like, the run game is foundational, right? And you need a good offensive line. You need a good running back. So Biden's going to figure out the white working class.
I think it's a combo of Biden, Bernie, and
Pete. We're putting Pete in 2 positions.
Right. No, I was going to say Biden, Bernie, and Timmy Walls.
I love Timmy Walls. Okay.
And like go do all the broy pod stuff, what? And but really start rebuilding, like get state parties more engaged, start thinking about what a 50, like go recruit some candidates, like get involved in how we actually build an organizing infrastructure that makes sense in terms of democratic institutions. And I think that attempting to recapture and sort of atone for what the DNC did by way of icing Bernie out for so long is like way overdue. And I don't know if he would do anything with the DNC in any meaningful way, but I would love to see him like be really engaged on how we can actually make this. Like,
I think he has to
coalesce all of this together.
I think he and Elizabeth Warren. I was also reminded.
And make the case about why $5 actually matters, right? Like
100%.
Going around the country and trying to recapture some of that, or trying to remind people that they once believed that, and like bringing them back over. And that's the people that Trump is appointing are clowns. Continue.
The last night of the convention, the best speech, or the speech that had the loudest applause, was Elizabeth Warren.
Oh yeah.
People forget that. There was like a standing ovation for Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah, people love her
in that hall. People love Elizabeth Warren, and again. We allowed, like that happens every time. We allowed Republicans to just completely tar her as this, whatever it was, and we never heard from her again.
Yeah.
And anyway,
all right,
I think
so
Warren.
we put Warren and then maybe like a Bill Clinton. He's a little dicey because of NAFTA.
No, I'm sorry, Clinton. I don't love the Clintons. The Clintons just need to
go away.
They need to retire. It's great.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Fine. Heard. I still think Bill Clinton's ability to be plain spoken, like the explainer in chief thing that he can do. Right. I forgot about that. Right. I forgot about that. Okay. All right. So he's off. He's out. He's had his time. But getting Elizabeth Warren, again, out there to like, how do you explain what actually happened to the economy? Because I don't think people, again, it's not even just what bills happen, but like, what is why your purchasing power has felt so diminished and what we're doing to actually improve it, right? And trying to remind people that whatever success starts to happen with that under Trump is due to what Joe Biden did.
100%.
Right. And so like constantly reminding people of that. How are we going to get that message across and like make sure that we are beating that drum every single step of the way?
Robert Reich is another really good one, former U.S. Labor Secretary.
Yeah.
He's still out there like substacking, talking.
Oh, yeah. He's great. I think
he's so good.
I reposted something.
But again, someone who, if given a platform and given an opportunity to talk about these issues, would be really good.
And even like Wally from Treasury and all these sort of younger generation of people who actually understand how the economy works.
Sure.
My new best friend Molly from the Brookings
Institute.
Institute.
From Brookings. I love that.
Kamala Harris. Probably think she's going to run for governor of California.
I think that, I don't know. I don't want to speculate.
Oh, Gavin. What's Gavin? What position's Gavin?
I should maybe be
Gavin.
Quiet about Gavin. I don't know. I don't know that.
You don't like Gavin.
No, I think Gavin is fine. It's like, here's the other part. And I think
he's so attractive. He could be in Trump's cabinet.
Yeah, Trump has picked a really great constellation of good-looking people for the most part. For the most part, there's some interesting. Matt Gaetz, like, let's.
Oh, the Botox.
Oh my Lord.
Oh God.
Gavin's fine. I mean, here's the other thing that's interesting about Democrats right now, where if you look at the data, the places where we actually lost a tremendous amount of the vote were in states and cities that are democratically run.
Yeah.
Which is also something that we need to reckon with, right? So, Gavin, I don't know. Is California a model for the rest of the country? California has very serious problems.
It does, as a resident.
As a resident,
yeah,
right. And it's not just in urban spaces, which I think people always bring up, but it's all across the state. And so it becomes complicated, I think. We do need to find representatives.
You can't deny that he has been so good. Like his Fox News debate shtick that he was doing over the course, and it was still Biden.
It doesn't hit me. I think that he hits a certain like receptor, mainly women, maybe because he looks great. I don't know. Like, I don't know what it is.
That's all us ladies vote for.
Exactly. He doesn't. It just always comes across as he's like very slick. It comes across almost too slick. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. All right.
And I don't know that that's going to resonate in this moment.
We might have
can
to
agree to
disagree on Gavin.
I won't draft Gavin, but
All
I
right,
would
fine.
draft. I mean, the other part, the other opportunity, which could be exciting, and we're seeing it already, where you're seeing people who you've never even heard of, like throw their hat in the ring, like someone who might be, state party chair, right? I mean, people obviously, you and I know Ben Wickler, but I don't think
Is
the
Ben
national.
Wickler really who we think should be the chair? I mean, we're gonna get into this later
Let's
as the
get into it.
as the campaign unfolds. I like Ben Winkler.
Me too.
I think he's done a great job, but I'm not convinced on that quite yet.
The thing about Ben, I've known Ben for years. You knew him when he was in D.C., right? Or no?
No.
Okay.
I mean, maybe. I can't remember anyone from like 2 years ago.
One thing I like about Ben, I've known him for years. Very, very humble, earnest, super smart guy.
Sure.
Very thoughtful, like the kind of person who really like listens. You meet people and they're kind of like looking around the room for someone else.
Oh yeah.
Ben is not that guy. I met Ben when he was working at MoveOn.org.
Great.
Right. So I met both Ben. Man, at that time, MoveOn was stacked because they had Ben, who became the state Democratic chair of Wisconsin, and they had Garland Gilchrist, who is now the Michigan deputy governor. I mean, we should whoever was hiring for MoveOn, by the way, whoever was hiring for MoveOn in the early 2010s should be picking the DNC chair. But both Garland and Ben, I think they understood two things. One, what I loved about Ben was he was always coming to the table with like, this is what our MoveOn members want.
Yeah.
Always.
Okay.
This is what they want.
Okay.
So he's listening to the actual base. And his job is clearly to animate and fire up the base. And I don't think that, from my perspective, the previous iterations of our DNC chairs, I don't think that they were that interested in what the actual voters wanted. I think it was more, we talked about the Perez-Bernie or Perez-Keith Ellison, debacle.
Yeah.
And that was very much no, we know best. We don't need to listen to these young ruffians.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we know how to run this party, I think Ben would be able to do a little bit of both, where he has run a very successful Wisconsin Democratic Party, one of the few.
Yeah.
If you look at the charts of the graph of to the right or to the left, Wisconsin, of all of the states, I think they're number one in terms of a battleground state.
Yeah.
That didn't go towards Trump.
Okay.
So that's him.
Sure. Great. I think that's all very impressive.
Okay.
And you know what it says to me? It says that he's a hell of an organizer.
Yes.
Which to me means go be the most powerful organizer in Democratic politics and be the ED. He should be the ED of the DNC, not the chair.
Okay.
The chair's job is to get attention.
Right.
Is to be flashy. Is to rebuild the brand of the Democratic Party. That's why I keep saying Jasmine Crockett or someone like that who can actually be an avatar for what we are representing. Like, and this is, and the chair and the ED occupy two very different roles, right? Past EDs include Jenna Miley Dillon. Like, it is the most powerful organizer in the Democratic Party. I saw you made that face, but it's true. And whether or not they win or they lose, fine. But it doesn't mean you are not without power, right? And you are not without setting the strategic course of the Democratic Party and all the state parties that fall underneath it.
Yep.
And so I think ED would be an extraordinary place for a Ben Winkler. But I think the chair, whose job is to be the public face, should be someone who is really good at commanding attention, occupying that attention, saying something that is memorable, and then then moving on to the next one.
Would Congresswoman Crockett need to resign, though?
No.
Could she do both? You think that she could be a congresswoman and the chair? Think she can do both?
I mean, what's her name from Florida who was the chair forever?
Oh, Debbie.
Debbie. I mean, that
was not a good example.
Because, well, no, she wasn't a great chair.
Yeah.
But the point is understanding the roles. Like, the chair of the DNC.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying.
Not the guy or the person who is like grinding it out and building the infrastructure. Like, that is that's a full-time job who is actually running the show. The chair is the figurehead. It's like the Queen of England, the Prime Minister.
I like it. Okay, so we got that figured out. We're just knocking down our fantasy list.
It's like the chair is actually like the field goal kicker.
Yeah, or no, the chair. What is a good position for the chair? I feel like the chair.
High stakes, all eyes on you, but you're not in the game every single
you're
moment.
Not doing it. Yeah.
You can make or break the thing. You can win or lose the game, but you're this like solo actor in the way that you're not like.
I like that.
I was really trying hard, and I want some validation for my.
You did really good.
I feel like I did a really good job.
You crushed it. I think it was really good. Okay, I like that a lot. What other? The piece that I was talking through, which is. How do we, I feel like we need, and maybe this falls into the media messaging conversation, because I think it's not enough. There's been so much focus being paid onto podcasts, and I think that that's great. And I know there have been I think Echelon did a poll, our guy Tom did a poll around how people consume media, what percentage of people who listen to a podcast voted for Trump. It was startling, the number.
Yeah.
But we're not going to podcast our way into the hearts and souls of Americans. I think that there also needs to be a very real, I love your term, down to the studs on what the Democratic Party actually is. Like truly, truly what it looks like, what it feels like. And I even mean down to like the logo, the visual assets,
totally.
the website, video content.
There's no one solution.
In fact,
that is going to fix the Democratic Party. We need like 30 things need to be improved.
Like there should all of these conversations that are happening. This is such a moment. Like people should be filming this. People should be filming. We should make the DNC chair election high stakes. We should make it interesting and accessible to millions of people. We shouldn't just make it so it's like behind closed doors.
Oh, let's pitch that.
And no one knows what's happening.
Let's pitch that. That'd be
like,
so
it should
fun.
be really interesting.
Like a special edition of the circus, like a special episode.
About all of these interesting people coming out of the woodwork to run. And what it actually means. Because I think
that's a great idea.
Because
who better than us, Brad?
We would crush this. And the other part too, I love how we're getting in there. The when people say like, well, the Democratic Party has a bad brand, or no one really knows what the Democratic Party does, or no one cares about who the DNC chair is. Whose fault is that? It's our fault.
Yeah.
Because we're not telling the story that is compelling or interesting to people. So if we're able to humanize, personalize, create the people who are going to run, create heroes out of them, and if they do win, when you win, people will follow. When you win, people are going to be interested in then what you're going to do after.
Let's pitch that.
I think it's really good.
Who's still at the DNC? Who even
Roger Lau's still there. Roger is incredible.
Approve that.
I called Roger, really great behind the scenes information. Called Roger I think the day right before the last day of the convention, because our guy Rashid Common, there's a huge debate over which song.
Oh yeah, I remember you having to deal with that.
And literally, Rashid was gonna be like, "I'm walking," because they're not gonna let me perform my song. Called Roger, fixed it within.
But he didn't perform.
2 seconds. He performed. He performed earlier in the day, not prime time.
My bad.
He didn't get a primetime slot, but he did get to perform. Anyway, so what other?
All right, call Roger.
We can call Roger.
You want to try him right now?
You can call him right now. Put him on the air. I love this idea.
Cool.
I love this idea. I think the other big thing, and this can come about when we're following some of these DNC chair candidates, and I don't know what position this is, but I think we do need a position of like, and I don't think maybe it's the media. I feel like everything is going into the media portfolio, but it needs to be someone who is just focused on beating back misinformation. Because I think that there's two things that happens, right? Where I agree with what you were saying earlier, right? Where it's very hard to do both. So if we're always on defense, we're never on offense. Right? Because we have a wide tent. So if Fox News is setting the terms of the debate all the time, and all they want to talk about are illegal immigrants across the border and trans kids, right? If we're always answering those questions, and then we're only talking about trans kids, and we're only talking about illegal migrations across the border. But we can't fully ignore those issues at the same time.
It's so true.
Which is what we've been doing. So we need to have a real strategic idea around the issues that we have been avoiding, and what better time right now than when these mass deportations are going to take place.
Yeah. All right. Now we're cooking. Okay. So
you know what I mean?
think that
Jose Antonio Vargas should run that.
Right.
Not just because he was on our pod, but he is undocumented. He is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist.
Yes.
He runs a media company.
Yes.
He embodies and represents and understands this issue better than anyone in America.
Yeah.
And the Democratic Party literally should have Jose every day be explaining to the American people what is happening.
Yeah. I think, though, because again, all of these things, and
we're solving all of the Democratic Party's problems.
Because there's an inside game and there's an outside game, right? There's like a technocrat. You also sort of need like a technocrat to actually get into the weeds of the people who are funding.
Yes.
And sort of responsible digital life and responsible online culture. And
great point.
The algorithm of it all, right? And actually like the hardware, the software, the actual platforms getting into that. And that will have gravitas. And like can pull up to Google and have a meaningful conversation about how this all works and what this all means.
Yes.
Who can go to the Hill and have a conversation about Section 230.
Yes.
And all of that. So that I think is Pete Buttigieg. Like, yes, he has the policy chops for it. He has the gravitas for it. He has a future in the party. He works across sector. And
he becomes like our explainer in chief.
Yes.
He's explaining.
Since you no longer want Bill Clinton in the Democratic Party, we will put him.
Pete is replacing Bill.
Is our new Bill. And he becomes the explainer in chief of the party and like takes over that section.
Agreed.
Right? Like Barack Obama does the media and the culture from the sort of public facing next gen of entertainers perspective.
Yep.
Pete is in charge of the media comms from the sort of technocrat perspective of like, we have all these digital spaces. How are we going to participate in them? We have Jose as chair of the immigration committee within the media disinformation ecosystem chamber. Echo chamber?
Yes.
Task force.
And then last but not least, we need to have a real young person, like a real youth council. We suck at this. We absolutely, the fact that we have not built a Turning Points, the fact that we have not built, I mean, this was talked about I mean, ad nauseum when we were in the Obama years, because there was all of this energy, but we couldn't
specifically from young people,
funnel it anywhere. The Young Democrats for America was not a thing. The college Democrats is not really a thing. The fact that we haven't built, like, think about how much money is poured into these elections. You burn it on fire. And we haven't built like a real youth organizing, especially it should be thoughtful and targeted towards men, right? Like, we just haven't done it. And I wonder,
is that maybe like finding a, like, you think about like March for Our Lives, which is one of the best youth run organizations. Those kids are incredibly smart.
Everyone should just learn from what they did. Absolutely.
100%.
Agreed.
And I know they're becoming older, but they're still like young Americans, young adults, and probably just graduating from college or mid-20s. I don't know how old Maxwell Frost is and like that whole crew, but like and then how are they recruiting even younger people, right?
Yes.
But I think you kind of expand that umbrella, because not everything has to come under the Democratic Party formally, right?
But I think we should, like, the thing with young people is we've always been afraid. We talked to Tom about this, right? Like, we've been like, well, they want to register, but they don't want to register as Democrats.
I get what you're saying.
Do you know what I mean? So I think this is a moment where we actually do have the heart. Yes, I think Maxwell.
David Hogue.
I think Maxwell will be incredible. I think Cameron Kasky, who was a part of the March for Our Lives. I think Emma. I think you're right. A lot of this leadership already exists,
right?
But it's not within the Democratic Party.
And that also brings in, like, I would love to see climate. There's so many amazing young climate leaders.
But also leaders on Palestine. I mean, I think we include.
When
we talk about young people, we can't just silo them, which is what they did at the convention.
Yeah.
They were just like, well, it's climate. And it's like, no, young people are obviously a lot bigger than just climate.
Yeah.
But I wonder if there is like a youth council. And I think, what would be cool? Get some, like, you and I know, incredible publicists. We know people who know how to really build an image, get ink, get stories, build a council. 6 young people.
Yeah, and then just
guns, climate, repro, war, anti-war, Palestine.
Yeah.
Like, build out this council and then have them just be out there all the time. And they are proud to be Democrats.
Well, and here's the thing.
No.
Here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
One of the things that we would then have to, a value that we would have to evolve within the party is our tolerance for disagreement. Yeah. Because the reality is young people, and we've said it here before, like, young people's job is to be radical and to be forceful and naive and to continue to push us and to tear apart sort of conventional thinking and come up with new ideas. And that's really, really challenging within the context of an establishment.
Agreed.
And so it would have to be like, we'd have to be really clear about what purpose these young people serve and give them a lot of latitude.
It's a really good
point. Both interact with and disagree with the established Democratic Party platform, because there's going to be a lot of moments of tension and we have to be like, no, good. And I, as someone who is an elected official or a senator that has a more moderate view, like, getting them in the room with these young people and be like, listen, I might not agree with you quite yet, but I'm going to listen to you, take it into consideration, be on board, and like be willing to be open to be pushed, and vice versa, right? These young people have to be have enough endurance to understand that that is a natural, and like, that to me is something that AOC has done so extraordinarily well, and the squad overall has done so extraordinarily well. You come into this existing institution, you remember when she first got into office, like the headbutting with Nancy Pelosi, and then figuring out a way to coexist with that institution without everybody hating her and like getting iced out, but also in building power within that institution, but also not having to compromise very much. And so learning how to do that as a value in the party is something that we have got to figure out.
It's such a great point, and it brings up kind of the elephant in the room, which is Gaza.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about it numerous times. I think most people who know me know where I stand personally, but I'll use this as an anecdote. So, and I'm sure my Obama alumni brethren won't mind. But
it's been very spicy in the group chat.
We have this group chat. There's maybe over 1,000 people that are in this group chat.
Very spicy.
And I'm not sure if you saw it recently, if you pulled it up.
Only because you texted me and told me that you were causing
But did you see the epilogue from it? There's like a happy epilogue from my
the book club you
rabble-rousing.
started?
Yeah. So all this to say, as you can imagine, the day after the election, there were a lot of thoughts from a lot of people about what went wrong. There was a lot of personal manifestos. There was a lot of solicitation for business. There was a lot of.
We were gonna get blocked.
It was amazing. I'm not gonna name any names, but it was good. But honestly, it was great. I loved it. I loved scrolling. People had heartfelt thoughts. People were angry. People were processing, as we all can and should. For those that don't understand the Obama alumni network, again, this is like, we have this credo, which is respect, empower, include. We have this idea that like what we were a part of is something very, very special. So seeing everyone's thoughts on the chain was moving for me. Like, I loved reading it all, even if I didn't agree with some takes, which there are a lot of takes. I just love people processing it and offering their heartfelt emotions, until someone offered a thought on Palestine. And then immediately the tone and tenor of the chat changed and got a little chippy, and people were offering that they should leave or this person should leave. And meanwhile, I silenced my notifications on my phone for WhatsApp because it's just so many. And so I had not seen all of this hubbub. And like I said, I haven't been drinking. So this is what happens. I get a little fired up when I don't drink. And so I saw this and I really didn't like it. I didn't like how we could talk about anything under the sun. We could talk about black men. We could talk about the lack of focus on certain communities. We can talk about this, that, and the other. But as soon as this issue came up,
got really
people were like, we
tricky,
can't have this
really
conversation.
Fast,
We can't have this conversation. And so what ended up happening was I really forcefully essentially am saying what I'm saying now, which is, no, this is the place to have the conversation. If we can't have the hard conversations within this network of people where we all know that we all care, we all know that we all have our own stories and we love this country and we want this country to be a better place. If we can't have this conversation in this space, we're never going to be able to have the conversation as a Democratic Party. And, lo and behold, I did the thing, and then a lot of stuff was kind of like hashed out. And then our resolution on this, which sounds dumb, is we're going to have a book club. Like, we're actually having a book club where we're going to have Jewish leaders, Muslim, Arab, Palestinian leaders. We're going to come together. It's going to be a Zoom. They've asked me to moderate it because I'm the person who started this whole shit. And I think there are examples where, with Gaza, where I saw personally the Democratic Party, but also youth groups as well. So a lot of the national youth groups didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. They would talk about everything under the sun, right? All of these other issues, when all of the data was showing how much young people, particularly on college campuses, cared about this issue. And I think it was an abdication of responsibility for Democrats and for these youth groups to just pretend like the war was not happening. The only groups that were talking about it were groups that work on this issue, but there's so many other groups. And so if we're going to do a youth council, like maybe I think Standing Together, which is a Jewish and Arab the coalition of young people that are based in Gaza, they work together. Like maybe there's a world where you have, a Jewish leader and a Palestinian leader, youth leader, who are doing press hits together, right? Because there does need to be an idea around how we end this war.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Period. And whether or not the vast majority of young people agree with that idea, there needs to be an idea.
Yeah.
And right now, there isn't an idea. there isn't even a stated policy of what we're even doing, other than Bernie Sanders, who just introduced another bill to block arms to Israel. So again, it's all of these things. It feels like, when you're in your home, I keep coming up with really bad metaphors, and it's like you don't want to clean your closet and you just keep shoving shit in your closet.
Totally.
It's like your house is a mess and you're like, oh, I'm going to grab this, I'm going to put it in my closet. And I feel like all of these things were just in the closet. Like immigration, we're going to shove it in the closet. Gaza, we're going to shove it in the closet. Trans rights, we're going to shove it in the closet. And literally, like, it all piled up.
Yeah.
And now it's a fucking mess.
Yeah.
And
can I say something about one of the things that you did in the chain that I don't know that you were doing this with this strategy or intent in mind.
Yeah.
But one of the things you succeeded at, and I think one of the reasons why it's going to work, is that you slowed it down. Mm-hmm. Right? Like people slowing it down to the pace of reading a book.
Yeah.
And then processing that book and then getting on a Zoom. Like it not only builds a common lexicon or like a common understanding of information, because people are going to interpret that book and react to that book in different ways, but by slowing it down, and I think slowing down the like social media, the 24-hour news cycle, we've gotten so quick to quickly reacting to things.
Oh, such a great
point. But not
point.
necessarily responding to things and not taking the time. Like there's no rush. You do not there's literally nothing in the Obama alumni chain is timely.
So true.
Just like sit on it, buddy.
Yes.
Take it down a notch and maybe wait until tomorrow to reply or whatever. And so I think we've allowed ourselves to be so sped up unnecessarily. And I get it. It's a life or death situation, is urgent, but you replying with some spice and some heat to a message is not affecting the timeline of the war.
Yes.
And so our reactions, our emotions are not affecting the actual timeline in real life.
Yes.
And I thought it was really brilliant of you, because I think it just gave everyone let me hold my fire until I've read the book.
Yes.
And then I can argue with someone and we can respond on chapter, blah, 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 page, blah, 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 blah. Then you and I are having a disagreement or an interaction from a unified starting place. And that I think is something that's really brilliant. And again, we need to see modeled in the party if we want to be the party of the Big Tent.
We have to be.
And that's the only way we'll win. So if we're going to be that, we have to be really, really good at being that. And we're not really good at that yet.
No, we're not good at it because I think we're defined by our opposition.
Yeah,
and
I think
I think that we're going to be even further defined by our opposition right now. Because as great as some of our ideas were, like all your ideas were so good of like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this. But what's going to end up happening is I think the deportations are going to start. And it's interesting. It was leaked that apparently they're going to focus on Chinese first.
No.
Which is a strategic and tactical move.
I didn't see that leak. Where'd you read that?
It was, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know me. I go down to the dark corners of the internet.
Oh, man. That is so smart.
It's smart. It's smart. And because here's the other part about why it's so smart. It's because, one, as you could probably expect, the Chinese American community, but also the Asian American community, that this is an issue that although there are so many immigrants, in fact, the fastest growing immigrant group in the United States are Asian Americans. There are so many undocumented Asian Americans in this country. But when you think about undocumented people, you do not think of Asian Americans.
Yeah.
And so, again, this is going to be this moment where will people care about Chinese undocumented people being deported? Right?
Well, and what's so insidious about that is that it plays right into the hand of tensions that exist between Black and Asian communities.
100%.
Latino and Asian communities. Ugh.
Also, geopolitically, this is Trump and China, just this ongoing battle. So,
well, and the CCP wants their people back anyway.
It's the other part too. They're like, fine, bring them back. So, but again, we have to remember these are all humans. These are all families. These are all children that had no choice, who live here, who pay taxes, who go to school. And
Ryan's going to be fired up about this. Do you text Ryan about it?
no, I haven't texted Ryan about it. But, you know, again, why Jose is so brilliant as a person who could be a voice for this is, one, everyone assumes Jose is Latino. He's not.
Yeah.
He's Filipino. He's Asian.
Yeah.
So he also comes at this from the angle of
colonialism, friends.
How do you build solidarity? Because you're right. Like, we can't. I know that on the TikToks and the memes, don't I sound like such a Zoomer by saying the TikToks? And I know we're running out of time, but I would love to explore this idea of like BIPOC being dead.
Oh.
You know? Because, and also there's a beautiful New York Times piece about Black women and the grieving that Black women are doing in the wake of this election. And these heartfelt interviews of Black women essentially saying, I'm tired. I'm tired of fighting for communities that are not fighting for me. And I do wonder, in this moment when Trump is going to be singling out, this is what he does. He's not going to deport everyone at the same time. It's so brilliant. Stephen Miller, Hitler-esque brilliant, to single out one nationality first. Will the rest of us care? Will non-Chinese people care?
And where are there? And I assume that the greatest density of undocumented Chinese folks would be on the West Coast.
West and East Coast too, like New York City. There's a lot of undocumented folks.
Yeah. No, and I mean, this is the thing. It's like, it's what I was talking about earlier. It's the fractioning of the communities that make up the Democratic Party base. When you say the end of BIPOC, what does that mean?
I am reporting back what I've heard from friends who are on the TikToks. I am not on the TikToks.
Okay.
But I've seen a lot of, it's also been documented a little bit on Twitter and Blue Sky, but just this feeling of we need to stop grouping all of these disparate communities together. And ironically, I almost feel the opposite. I mean,
quite a journey you've been on.
One would expect because one would expect this maybe from a multiracial human, but no, I mean to say it's not that much different from what I was saying before, though. Twig,
talk to me.
That when we slice and dice is when it gets dangerous.
Sure. Well, but clumping them together.
Well, I'm not.
But BIPOC, BIPOC has 5 letters.
BIPOC does have 5 letters.
It's everybody.
It's everybody. But what I mean to say is maybe
aside from white people,
I want to include white people. What I mean to say is I think that we need to. I think any organization out there right now, people are not going to like what I'm about to say, but any organization out there right now, especially if you are a single constituency organization. Right? Especially a lot of the Asian American groups that do like individual communities. You should consider merging with different groups. I think should be, I think that should be a part of the autopsy.
Yeah.
Like we're merging all of these disparate parts for the Democratic National Committee. There should be that for the progressive infrastructure.
Yeah, you're right.
There's no reason why a group that does really great organizing work in Atlanta, that's a Black-based group, isn't also just working with the Asian group, the Black and Asian group just merging.
Yeah.
Merging staff, merging resources, especially if they're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Because they're living in the same communities.
Yeah.
It's Gwinnett County. It's Fulton County. Like, just merge those groups. You have more people to reach, and also you're learning from each other.
Yeah.
And so what I mean to say is, like, I don't think retreating back to our communities, which is when I hear end of BIPOC, what I'm hearing is people being like, fend for yourself.
Retreat into my Blackness. Y'all on your own. I tried. How many times have I said I love white men on this damn thing? I tried. I'm out. Bye.
That's my worry. My worry is, and I also worried that foundation money is going to dry up too. I think a lot of foundations are going to listen to what Bill Maher said. You know, like this idea that we can't be a big tent. We can be a big tent.
I'm less worried about foundation money drying up and more worried about the fact that the immediate response, so much money is going to go into the immediate response.
Good point.
Of just the chaos that's about to unfold.
Yep.
Right? So there's going to be, the minute they start atrophying the Department of Education, the minute they start these mass deportations, like there's going to be a huge need for immediate cash to go into slowing it down, filling the gaps, catching people before they fall, communicating what's actually happening, litigation strategies, legislative strategies on the state, national, and local level. And that is going to siphon my concern is that siphons a lot of money from the non-reactive,
very good point,
like day by day infrastructure building that also has to happen.
We have to walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yes. And it's really, Democrats have not done a good job of funding both things at the same time. I mean, there was so much scenario planning over the course of the last year that a lot of the think tanks, a lot of the foundations have been getting ready for a second Trump presidency. And so ideally, no one out there is being caught flat-footed.
Yeah.
I think we all probably allowed our hopes to get high, but they were, people have been very clear-eyed about the likelihood of his winning, especially when Joe Biden was still on top of the ticket. And so those plans are going to get implemented, and hopefully that doesn't happen. But, the human tendency to chase the ball versus staying in your position is just really rinsing this sports metaphor.
I love it.
Is so deep that, I think it's still a risk that we run.
It's the other part about it, too, is if we're only focused on that, and especially there's going to be so much noise around that, and it's going to be very hard to watch. It's going to be very comparable to Gaza. Yeah. It's going to be very hard to watch. It's going to be, and people are going to want to turn away. And God bless a lot of these people with platforms and podcasts and all these people. But if I have to hear one more time someone say, I don't want to talk about politics anymore, we're going to go back to regularly scheduled programming, check your fucking privilege and shut the fuck up. If you've been talking about politics during this campaign cycle and now you're just going to stop talking about it, you've missed the point.
Yeah.
You've missed the point. You're missing the thread. Now is the time to tune in. Now is the time to educate and communicate to people what is happening around them. Now is the time to put more resources and more investment into what is happening, because what is about to happen is going to be terrifying. And Twig, you're right. Like, we have to be able to, I love the way that you laid it out, because while those deportations are happening, we still need to talk to white men in Michigan.
Yeah.
About what's happening.
So much. This is such a massive country.
Yeah.
That it's so easy to something that's happening to 1 million people in your town, in your state, and you have no idea.
Yes.
You can go through your day and have no idea it's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. And so there's so much work that has to be done. And this country and the size of a population has so much capacity to absorb so much.
Yes.
That it's really, really difficult to figure out how you strategically address all of it. And
the storytelling piece is going to be, that is the part where I do think, and I know we finally have to leave because they're going to kick us out. The DNC always sort of abdicated that responsibility.
Yeah.
They were always, especially during the last 4 years, they were like, well, it's whatever President Biden's doing. It's whatever Kamala Harris is doing. Right now, they have to really be squarely focused on, no one else is going to tell their story but them.
Yeah.
They have to own what is happening and what Democrats are doing each and every day to fight for people.
Yeah.
Because people don't know. People don't see it. And these glossy Kamala Harris ads does not replace what you said. She can't solve all those problems in 100 days.
Yeah.
It has to be every single day.
Yeah.
And if, speaking of like infrastructure and money and all these things, like that has to be the number one thing that they're focused on, is that.
Yeah, totally.
We did it.
We did it.
We solved it.
We made it. Everything's fixed.
We drafted a team.
Yeah.
I got a little fired up in the beginning. Maybe we'll cut
good.
all of that out. Maybe we'll cut it all out.
I don't know. don't know. We'll have to review the tape. It was long. I think maybe we can tighten it.
We could tighten up some of my cursing and some of my
But who knows, right? It's like it's fine. It's fine. Maybe we'll just move something that feels fun up to the top just to warm people up a little bit. Because we went from zero
like
to
that.
We dove right in. But
yeah.
it's fine. It's also fine.
Twig, we'll see you soon.
Yeah,
we're gonna do some remote pods. We did a remote pod last week. I think we'll try to do that a little bit more. And then we're gonna start having guests on again. So if folks have ideas on guests,
you're running for DNC chair, we want to talk to you.
I think we've already had some solicitations.
We have.
In the DNC chair race. And
we have. I'm really excited. I want to talk to people who are going to be leaving the administration once it officially turns over, because I think one of the things that so many people don't understand about what's about to happen is what these departments actually do, like what these jobs are. And there's so many brilliant people who are doing such cool work in the administration and such important work. But again, to a specific group that if you're not affiliated with it, you just probably won't interact with it. And so like some superstars who are leaving the White House, leaving the various agencies, would love to have you on. Think about that. Maybe give us some hot takes on your replacements.
Oh my God. Transition.
Right?
Transition. Well, that is a really great point.
January.
We're definitely going to we're learning it. Twig mentioned my tweet about the Department of Education and how many people were mortified, had no idea.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of education during the dismantling of government, what these government departments and agencies actually do.
Right.
People are going to learn.
Yep.
And so.
Yeah,
anyway.
And it's getting real out there. I think you saw the news that they were like, fucking losers, neo-Nazis marching in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh shit!
Isn't that crazy?
And then I saw your piece about the black men. Then was that the next day? That they came out?
Yeah. It was so beautiful. But I used to live on the block where these dudes, of course, fully masked because they won't show their faces because they'll lose their jobs or their whatever.
Just cowards.
Absolute cowards. Chanting N-words, bow down.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. People are the worst.
This is the world. I was going to say this is the new world we live in, but this is the world we've been living in. We've been living in this world.
Yeah. It's just people like Bill Maher, people like Donald Trump, people who have been platforming these ideas have created a permission structure.
Yes.
That's not all the way there because they're still covering their faces because they're scared of social consequences. But they're so much more willing to do and say dumb crap like this. And
now's the time to get engaged. I will say the last thing I'll say, we're way over time.
Is the time to get engaged.
Is yes, now is the time to get engaged. And there are a lot of people, and sorry, I suck on social media, but I did get a lot of DMs and people being like, what do I do? How do I get involved? And we're gonna hopefully offer some ideas, but also you guys know the best. And I would say start in your own community.
Yeah, locale.
Like just get involved. Get involved in the thing that you love in your community, and take
it from there. Let it rip.
And let it rip. And then just don't watch Bill Maher.
Yeah, watch us.
Watch us instead.
Watch Brad talk about Bill Maher.
Exactly. It's much better.
Yeah.
I love you, Carri Twigg.
Love
Thank
you
for coming. Peace, guys.
Bye.
We're out.